Welcome back. Thanks for staying with us. Now, protests are beginning to mushroom across the continent as the price of fuel continues to skyrocket. In recent days, South Africa and neighbouring Mozambique have experienced chaos where bus and truck drivers blocked key cargo routes. Many are demanding that the governments respond accordingly to high fuel costs. Now, joining us to comment on these developments is Professor Sampson Mamphweli from Stellenbosch University. A very good evening to you, Professor. Thank you for your time. The ripple effect of Russia's invasion of Ukraine has been massive, especially here in Africa.
Yes, good evening to you and the viewers. Yes, it's been quite massive, and I've said this before at the beginning of the invasion here on Newzroom Afrika at some point, that we're going to see rising fuel prices because the demand will be much higher. And there was that indication by Vladimir Putin that he was going to request countries to move from buying crude oil using the dollar, and from their side, the oil and gas. They must now use the rubles, the Russian rubles. And that has happened. He has given that instruction, and that came with its own dynamics because the European Union on their side, they didn't want to use the rubles, but they created what we could call a middleman, which is like another bank that does the exchanges. So they send the money to that bank, and then that bank changes the money to the rubles. They send it in US dollars, and then it changes to the rubles, and then that pushes the price of crude oil quite high as well. So there's quite a number of factors that are associated with the invasion that are now leading to the high fuel prices.
I understand transportation costs have also been another contributing factor when it comes to the general distribution.
Yes, so the transportation costs have gone quite high. And there's some kind of unfairness from the rich countries that are paying premium to transport some of their fuel. So the transporters basically are pushing the prices quite high because they're aiming for that premium. And in some cases, we may see some shortages in the near future if that continues unabated as well.
And when we speak of transport, I mean, we're learning as, of course, we're speaking to more and more farmers who are saying that this could now impact food security because the price of fuel is high, and also there is a ripple effect when it comes to food production.
Yes, so the transport side is both on transporting the fuel from the countries that are refining, because we don't have refineries. We have very few refineries that don't have capacity, basically, to provide us with the necessary fuel. And then when the fuel is already in the country, it goes into storage, and then it gets transported again to the end users, basically to the fuel stations where we get it from the pumps and things like that. So that fee has also gone up as well. And on top of that, the transport of goods and the delivery of various services that require fuels has also gone up, and that is going to have a ripple effect, obviously, on the food prices. It's going to have a ripple effect on clothing and basics that we need on our daily basis, because they all need to be transported from one place to the other, and also some of them need to be manufactured using some of the fuel.
So demonstrators are not taking this lying down. I mean, demonstrators across the continent. Here in South Africa, of course, we know that a key supply route was blocked this week. And also speaking to Mozambique and Guinea, a person was killed, people died. And in Morocco, the impact is also just as strong. They are not going to take this matter lying down. Where does it now leave the continent? Because this is a really important conversation that needs to be had.
So we need some form of energy independence, in my view. I experienced some of these issues because I just came from Bombela. I was there day before yesterday, and I could see the situation was not very good. So we need some form of energy independence. So we need to start looking at, in my view, alternatives we need to invest a lot of money in the hydrogen economy. Because that is something that is upcoming, and South Africa is starting to play a role in that. We're starting to move into that. We need to invest a lot in renewable energy. And because what I foresee in the near future, we will have a lot of electric vehicles. As we speak, Stellenbosch University is conducting some research on minibus taxis, on electric minibus taxis. So we are anticipating that market is going to grow, and it's the kind of market where we can have some energy independence as opposed to us exporting our resources. Some of the oil comes from Nigeria and Algeria, and then it goes overseas. They refine it, and then it comes back here at a much higher price. And we don't have control of that particular price because it depends on so many factors, including the rand-dollar exchanges and things like that. So some form of energy independence is needed. I have seen in the city of Cape Town, people have started moving towards alternative energy. Some people are converting their cars and running them on as a hybrid, on fuel, on either diesel and petrol and gas as well. Whether that conversion is illegal at this point in time, I don't know. I've seen most of the e-hailing drivers running with the gas as well. It looks like it's a very safely done conversion. I'm not sure about that. I still need to investigate. But that just tells you that people are becoming more desperate because gas is a little bit cheaper than buying the fuel itself.
With the governments now scrambling over some form of, response, and we hear here in South Africa, President Cyril Ramaphosa has not said much about what needs to happen going forward. So what does this now speak to when it comes to questions around the pricing model of fuel? How the formula perhaps needs to change? I mean, you speak to one solution on energy and dependence as a continent, but what about the pricing structures?
So in terms of the pricing structures, we've got basically three main pricing structures. The one is the ad hoc pricing structure, which we don't use in South Africa, where there is no transparency basically. And that one is used by countries that have got quite a lot of oil or a lot of fuel resources. And then we've got the formula-based, which is the one that we use in South Africa, where we use the basic fuel price formula. And if you look at that formula, there isn't much for government that government can do in terms of maneuvering around it, because most of the items that are associated with the particular formula are standing items that we cannot change. One of the items that maybe government could look at is the calculation on the road accident fund. But we have, we have realized that you don't have that much room to maneuver there as well, because the road accident fund needs quite a lot of money. In terms of the fuel levies, maybe government can do something there, but the room to maneuver is not that much. Recently, they scrapped they actually postponed the general fuel levy. And when that happens, when it comes back, it comes a little bit heavy on the consumers. So in terms of the pricing structure that we use in the country, I don't think there is much that a government can do. There are long-term, mid-term to long-term interventions that government can bring on board. We have things such as the biofuel strategy that was developed and approved by cabinet some time ago, which could bring in some additional fuel. Even if it's 2%, it's going to make a huge difference. The use of renewable electricity, like I said, to produce things such as green hydrogen and things like that. Then we have the liberalized pricing model that is used mainly globally, mainly by countries that have got quite a lot of resources as well. And even though we don't use it locally, it still affects us because, for instance, what's happening in Russia still affects us here in Africa. because that liberalized pricing, the market itself determines the price, and that is what happens externally, and then it affects us internally, even though we're using our own formula.
So you say we shouldn't be looking much externally anymore, and the focus should rather be internally. We know that Zimbabwe is looking at oil drilling from around next month. I mean, how will that work?
Yeah, so we know that these reserves in Zimbabwe were identified way back in the 90s. I still remember there were some oil deposits that were discovered in Rusape at some point. And this time they're talking about drilling in another place as well. So that, and the Americans wanted to build a big refinery in Zimbabwe for supply of the fuel in the SADC region. And then there's a lot of geopolitics around some of these kind of things. Because it then depends on who is going to exploit the particular resources. So the Americans and the Zimbabweans couldn't agree on how the resources should be exploited. South Africa was involved as well, but they pulled out because of the geopolitics. Now I hear the Australians are going in there, they're working with the Zimbabweans. I haven't seen the particular agreement that they have, because it's a secret agreement at this particular point in time. But they are indicating that they've seen some good reserves. They will be starting with the drilling next month. That can help only if they will end up building a refinery, a big refinery in Zimbabwe, and do the refinery locally. Then we don't have to send the Zimbabwean oil to Australia or to another country for refining, and then when it comes back, it's priced in US dollars, and then we can't afford it again.
The continent is looking for a solution right now, as you and I speak. How long, in terms of time frames, are we looking at these, proposals that you're speaking of here, neuroelectricity and energy independence? What time frames are we looking at? Is this something that can happen within the next 5 years?
Yeah, it's something that can happen within the next 5 to 6 years on a mid-term basis, but it needs quite a lot of money to be invested in. For instance, Namibia has started a massive hydrogen production project, and I hope it becomes a success. Then it can spill over to other countries within the SADC region and also in the continent. They haven't started producing the hydrogen, but they've awarded the tender already, and we are anticipating that in the next few months they'll be starting with the production of hydrogen. In terms of the technology, we do have cars already that run on hydrogen. It's an easy conversion from the current kind of engines to either dual fuel engines or engines that can run on 100% hydrogen. And also in terms of the electric vehicle market, at some time around before the lockdown, Tesla wanted to start importing some electric vehicles into South Africa, but because of the lockdown and the slowing down of the economy, they couldn't do it. There are a number of other companies, including some Chinese companies, that want to manufacture some small electric vehicles in South Africa. Once that starts happening, we will start to see a little bit of energy independence if we're depending more on the energy that we have within the country, that we don't have to first export elsewhere and then import it at a much higher price.
Yeah, very well. Thank you so much for weighing in on this discussion. That was Stellenbosch University's Professor Sampson Mamphweli speaking to some of the details when it comes to solutions on the energy crisis, of course looking at the fuel prices across the continent.